Hi guys, everyone has a story, and I firmly believe that all of our stories are important. And while all of our stories are important individually, I also think and believe that our stories are caught up in bigger stories that define us, that shape us, that form us. Stories of our family, of our workplaces, of our nations. The list of those big stories can go on and on. But it's important to talk about stories because stories tell us, among other things, how we got here, what our identity is, what's wrong with the world, and who the bad guys are. Big stories, the ones that try to explain the big picture of the world, they have a plot that tell us where we are going and how to fix what's been broken. Often, they have someone who makes fixing what is broken possible. This person who fixes what's broken, or this concept, it's kind of is the hero. And big stories also have an ending. They tell us where we are going and what will happen when we get there. The story of God has an ending, which more appropriately might be called a new beginning. There's something wrong with the world. This is what the story of God says. There's something wrong with the world, but what's wrong can be made right again. To get to that new beginning, the brokenness that's in the world needs to end. And Jesus, as the hero of God's story, does exactly that. What Jesus does is Jesus defeats death as the hero of God's story, and he offers us resurrection life. Jesus, he also ends exile by giving to us and empowering us by his Spirit. We're no longer removed from the presence of God. God's presence, God's Spirit comes to dwell with us. And finally, Jesus is on a mission to make all things new. That is, Jesus is on a mission to fix everything that's been broken. Let me read to you from the last book of the Bible, Revelations 21. This is right near the end of the entire Bible. Revelations 21 verse 1 says, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and there was no longer any sea. I saw the holy city, the new Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared as a bride beautifully dressed for her husband. And I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, 'Look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and he will dwell with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death, or mourning, or crying, or pain, for the old order of things has passed away.' He who was seated on the throne said, 'I am making everything new.' Then he said, 'Write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true.'" So, the story comes full circle. The beginning of the story, according to the Bible, the story of God, the beginning of the story of God, it started with God and the humans he created to be in relationship with him and to be his representatives, the humans that he created in a garden. That's where the story starts. God and humans that he created in a garden. And it ends with God and the humans he has redeemed. After they had rebelled, after they had broken everything, it ends with a story. The story ends with those humans redeemed in a garden city. No longer a garden, but a garden city. At the end of the story, the separation of the heavenly and the earthly, it collapses. The distance between the spiritual and the physical reduces to zero, and the new heaven and the new earth become one. All the brokenness that was introduced by human rebellion is removed. God dwells with his people, and there will be no more tears, no more death, no more mourning or pain, because the brokenness has been fixed. All things have been made new. The reasons there's tears, death, mourning, pain, it's because we rebelled against God and we introduced brokenness into his creation. But the end of the story is that everything humans have corrupted, God has made new again. The end of the story is maybe contrary to kind of popular culture belief of what heaven is like. The end of the story is not floating on clouds playing harps, but it's embodied physical, spiritual life together the way it was always meant to be. It's in the presence of God and humans working with God to cultivate the universe. I personally, this is the story that I hold on to. I personally look forward to living and flourishing and bringing flourishing to the new Melbourne one day. Not just going up to heaven, but God's presence coming down and making this earth new and renewed, the new creation. Knowing For me, knowing that this is the end of the story and the beginning of a new one, I can live my life with a purpose and a focus working towards this goal. Every day for me is an opportunity to live out the adventure of following Jesus into this new creation. One day it will come fully. It's going to come one day fully, 100%, consummated. But until then, I will follow Jesus in his mission to make all things new, step by step. I can contribute to that complete goal today and tomorrow and the day after that, little bit by little bit. I share this story that makes sense of my life and gives me meaning and purpose and hope. I invite people into my life while listening to their stories, giving hospitality to people who are like me and different to me, looking for where the Holy Spirit is moving so I can partner with the Spirit to see a little bit more renewal of all things on earth. Each day, little bit by little bit. The way I follow Jesus as he leads me into the new creation is by sharing this story, is by listening to other people's stories, is by showing hospitality to people who are like me or who are different to me, partnering with the Spirit of God who dwells with me to bring fruitfulness and flourishing to all those around me, whether they're Christians or not. One day, Jesus will return, according to this story, and everyone will be resurrected. Those who choose to love and serve Jesus will be with him forever in a new creation. The new creation is this earth as it was always meant to be, full of humans made in God's image, caring for and cultivating the universe, building human civilization with God at its center. You know, it's a very happy ending, and it literally finishes with everything that's been broken made new again. It's an ending that leads to a new beginning, giving us a chance to be who we are always meant to be. This is the story that I believe, and this is the story that shapes who I am. Maybe you agree with it, or maybe you disagree with a little bit here, a little bit there. Maybe you disagree with all of it entirely, and that's fine. You know, I've got some questions here that will hopefully provoke some thoughts and discussions, and I'd be interested in what you have to think. So please feel free to share with me somehow. So, does this part of the story make sense of something you felt or experienced in your life? Maybe you've had a feeling of, you know what, is there an ending? Is there a sense of completion? Or maybe you've had a feeling of, things do need to be made right. There are broken things that need fixing. There is a renewing that needs to take place. Or does this part of the story, does it frame the things you see in the world in a useful way? Does it offer explanatory power for the way we live our lives? Second group of questions. Do you agree with the premise that the world needs to be made new? Maybe you think, yes, I totally agree. It's obvious. Or maybe you think, no, it's not obvious. I think the world's fine. This is the way it should be. But if the world is meant to be made new, what would a renewed world look like for you? What do you think it should look like? What do you think about when you hear the term new creation? What ideas does that generate in your imagination? And then the final group of questions. What do you think happens at the end? What do you think happens at the end of the story? What happens at the end of your story? What do you think is going to happen? Do you think we can have a happy ending? Whatever that ending is, happy or not, or what you think happens at the end of the story, what does the ending of your story mean for the way you live your life now? Given that you believe X, Y, or Z about the end of your story, what does that mean for your ABC today? How does it impact the way you live your life now? Well, thanks for listening to my perspective on the story of God, and thanks for discussing these questions. And like I said, I'd love to hear your thoughts. All right, thanks so much.